Simon Tesfaye, Tigrayan and founder of the DW Foundation, joins me now. Welcome, Simon. Good to see you and thanks for your time. Ethiopia's cabinet has approved the lifting of a 6-month state of emergency ahead of its expiration in the light of changing security conditions in the country. Does that mean Ethiopia is winning the war?
That's a very interesting question when you refer to Ethiopia as winning this war, because nowadays it looks like the narrative has become Ethiopia versus Tigray, which a lot of people forget the fact that Tigray is part of Ethiopia. And it shows that the Ethiopian government is fighting a foreign force. But the reality is Ethiopia is not winning this war. Ethiopia is losing this war in many aspects. Regardless of who wins this war, be it the Tigrayan government or the Ethiopian government, it's the Ethiopian life that is being lost. But at the end of the day, what we need to understand is this government, this tyrannical government, as we've mentioned last time, we referred it as a terrorist group. What it's doing is it's trying to shift the fact that there is a human crisis in Ethiopia, and it's talking about a state of emergency. This state of emergency has done nothing to the people that are starving back home in Tigray. The siege is still there. There's a couple of days ago, 24 World Food Program trucks were returned from the Afar region, and they were not able to enter the Tigray region, which is suffering at this point. So when you ask me that question and ask if Ethiopia is winning this war, my answer for that was going to be no, it's not. If you're referring to the tyrannical government, that does not represent the people of Ethiopia. If that government is winning the war, and the answer to that is no as well. Just yesterday, the Tigrayan forces have announced that they've retaken certain areas within the Afar region to kind of safe harbor the Tigrayans.
Well, Simon, diplomatic efforts led by the African Union to reach a ceasefire seem to have failed to achieve any visible breakthrough. So what do you see happening next?
It looks like, for me, the Ethiopian government is playing games. What they're trying to do is they're trying to survive on a day-by-day kind of mode. And it tracks back to what they did today, lifting up the 6-month state of emergency. That's more of a publication stunt to say that Ethiopia is stable for the upcoming African Union summit that's going to happen in mid-February. So they're just trying to create some kind of false narrative where they're willing to negotiate and talk and come up with diplomacy. They're not willing to do that. Their problem is not political, as we've said. It's trying to eradicate the people of Tigray. So in my opinion, unless the international world takes action and sanctions this tyrannical people, there's not going to be any diplomatic solution to the crisis that we're having. What we need to have is an international mandated sanction against this brutal government that's massacring Tigrayans on a daily basis. They've shown diplomacy is not a way for them. Negotiations are not the way for them. They just pretend, act, and kind of divert the attention towards political conditions, while the actual crisis is humanitarian.
Well, the conflict that broke out in November of 2020 has actually displaced millions and triggered widespread hunger, as highlighted by you. But how are the humanitarian crises in that axis and access, to aid going at the moment, Simon?
So the crisis is horrible at this point. Children are dying on a daily basis. Last week, the head of the gynecologist in Eider Hospital, which is the biggest hospital in Tigray, has announced over 250 children have died due to lack of food because of malnutrition to the mother. These are children that were not born fetuses. They were supposed to be born healthy, safe, but they were kind of failed pregnancy because of lack of medication. This should say a lot about the humanitarian crisis in Tigray. And what's happening is, as I said earlier, the Ethiopian government is blocking aid. A couple of days ago, 27 World Food Program trucks that were carrying life-saving aids were rerouted and returned by the Afar Special Forces. So the crisis is horrible, and it's going real bad. And on a daily basis, hundreds and thousands of children are dying, in addition to adults that are dying because of lack of medication, lack of food. So the humanitarian crisis is as horrible as it can get. We've never seen this kind of humanitarian crisis, never in the history of mankind.
Well, before I let you go, Simon, you're one of those, voices speaking and bringing attention of the world to the devastating effect of this crisis to the Tigrayans. So we've also seen these, series of pockets of protests, especially that we just saw earlier in South Africa. Are these making any kind of impact, to helping the humanitarian, issues around Tigray?
So what we're trying to do is with this rallies and protests is kind of pressure foreign governments to act upon the current atrocities and massacres that is going against Tigrayans. But we've gotten to a point where the whole world knows what's happening in Tigray, but nobody's willing to act upon it. And it's sickening and it's so depressing for Tigrayans across the world. Children in Tigray are committing suicide. Hundreds and thousands of children are committing suicide due to depression and the things that they're seeing on a daily basis. Our attempts is trying to go and see if this international community, in addition to foreign actors that always preach and promise to spend billions and millions of dollars in the name of humanity, if they're willing to act. But what we're seeing right now is they've chosen to be political rather than humane and stop the siege and the massacre that's happening against Tigray. And it's very disappointing, to be honest with you.
Well, I can so imagine what you just highlighted. We'll stay on this, Simon, and thanks for your time.
Do appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.